Welcome to this episode of Lead the Machine podcast, where today's leaders and tomorrow's talk about the human side of AI at work. I'm your host, Kirsten Marr, and it's an honor to have today's guest on Lead the Machine, Marty Welch, a remarkable leader and someone I'm pleased to call colleague and friend. Marty Welch is the president and CEO of Hawaii Employers Mutual Insurance Company, or HEMIC. HEMIC is the largest writer of workers' compensation insurance in the state. In an industry shaped by regulation, trust, and long-term risk, Marty has consistently found ways to bring innovation and integrity together. He has over 40 years of experience in workers' compensation and property and casualty insurance, and leads with a steady hand and a forward-looking mindset. Prior to joining HEMIC in 2012, Marty served as president and chief operating officer for Employers Holdings, a multi-state workers' compensation carrier based in Reno, Nevada. There, he drove online systems to modernize employers' capabilities to serve small market workers' compensation customers. He also led the strategic integration of a $200 million acquisition and played a key role in Employers' initial public offering strategy. Before that, Marty spent 25 years with the former Wausau insurance companies. While insurance is a large industry in terms of its size and impact, it's actually a close-knit community. And Marty is part of the fabric of the industry, serving on the executive committee for the American Association of State Compensation Insurance Funds and the governing board for the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. He is active in Hawaii as well, serving on the Finance and Investment Committee for the Chamber of Commerce and as chairman for the board for the Arthritis Foundation of Hawaii. All good reasons to be excited to learn from Marty today, but there is more. Marty doesn't lead with hype. He leads with purpose. I worked closely with Marty when I was at Vallon Analytics, and HEMIC was our longest standing customer relationship. I've seen firsthand the intention he puts into things he considers priorities, customer-centric innovation top among them. His leadership reflects a clear philosophy. Technology should amplify your mission, not distract from it. At a time when many leaders are unsure how to proceed, Marty provides a roadmap grounded in experience, empathy, and ethics. He has deep roots in operational excellence and a strong belief in the power of partnerships, which allows HEMIC to remain a market leader while never losing sight on the commitment to serving customers. Today, we'll look back a bit on how we worked together on predictive analytics and how it informs the work he is leading with his team in artificial intelligence. So, Marty, before we dive into AI, can you share with the audience the context and perspective you bring to the reality that adapting to powerful new tools has always been part of progress?
Well, Kirsten, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for that extra flowery introduction. I hope no one was adding up all the years you went through there in my career. For fear of being labeled an old guy, I feel like I'm still working toward the future here and looking forward to this. But
Seasoned,
let
you're
me,
seasoned, seasoned.
yeah, seasoned, yeah, yes. Let me let me look back a little bit on that, and I think, I can start by saying I did begin my career a long time ago, well into the last century, and I think while sometimes that makes me someone would view us as dinosaurs, I think the important point about dinosaurs is they didn't adapt, and I think what I've found is that change has been a constant in my career, technologically particularly. But I'm gonna admit, when I started in this business, I sat at an underwriting desk, so I cut my teeth as an underwriter in this business, and that was back before computers and keyboards on the desk. So we were hand rating, with calculators, quotes, and typing them up in the stenographer pool of the office and sending them out to our producers. But things changed quickly into the 80s, and then exponentially as we moved over the next 30 plus years, I think. So I think of some of the seminal moments I had was the first time we actually used a personal computer in the office. And I was already in the home office of my first employer at this point in time as a underwriting consultant, and we used to prepare a lot of the retrospective rating quotations for the underwriters out in the field. And in those days, you actually hand calculated a basic expense factor through some formula. And then this computer comes in and you punch in a couple of numbers and instantaneously this thing spits out at you. And it was mind-blowing to me that now all of the work of learning this process is now going to be done for me.
And
And
and for the non-insurance audience, what's an expense factor?
okay, well, a retrospectively rated policy means that the insured's ultimate premium is going to flow with their loss experience for that policy year. But there's a basic expense charge that needs to be charged them to manage all the insurance company's expenses, and that insurance charge of what's the value of the severity that might happen with that risk. So that
And
was a
severity is how big is the claim,
correct,
right? The
correct,
claim can be frequent, like it happens a lot, or it can be
correct.
pretty big and severe. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So anyway, that was a factor that took a lot of components into consideration, and those all just got to be givens and variables that went into a computer program, and then we were able to just spit out these retro quotes in a fraction of the time. And instead of that being, oh, gee, now what am I going to do? It really becomes, well, look how much more now I can do with my brain work around analysis and moving the organization forward, as opposed to hand calculating expense factors. So that was kind of the first introduction, and I think throughout my career, I can think of other examples of we would have called it automation then, but I think today automation is moving toward artificial intelligence. It's more than what we input being calculated faster than we can do it. Now it's information being input from around the universe, and then with some intelligence that's able to massage that more than just calculate something. But the but
How
the
afraid were people when the personal computer came out? I'm not going to have a job.
I think it was a mixture of fear and almost a um, kind of laughing at it. It was almost, this is never gonna work. This is like, if man were meant to fly, he'd have wings, and I just think it was a real mix. I think there were individuals certainly in the organization that were swept away, that were more in a rating job. In the same way, I think I mentioned a steno pool typing quotations in those days. Well, there's no steno pools in offices today. We all type our own, or we have somebody who does it for us. But it's not a group of people who have to type, because that's how communication happens. And many or most all of those people continued with the organization in a different capacity. And I think that's going to be true of AI for those that are willing to adapt a little to what they think their job might be at their desk, as opposed to what value they can bring to the organization through their capabilities and experience.
So for those who thought, oh, this PC thing, this is flavor of the month. Didn't Time magazine weigh in on that in the 80s?
Yes, they did, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I use that as an example here when we were first venturing into AI. I kind of went back through the how much change has man, endured through the centuries, going back to fire and the steam engine, and the printing press and the steam engine and the assembly line and the computer and all of that, to here's the personal computer being Time magazines. And I had to explain to younger staff, first of all, what Time magazine was in some cases, but also that the man of the year, which I think Charles Lindbergh was the first in 1920, whatever, then became a person of the year. And then this year it was a machine of the year in 1983, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But my point was it was a cover shot of a personal computer on the cover of the magazine, and sitting in front of it, as I'm sitting in front of you, Kirsten, was this kind of white, hazy humanoid, looking very submissive to the computer, as if now this thing is dictating to us. And as I told my staff, at that moment, everybody thought computers are taking over our lives.
Mhm.
And I said, and frankly, they have. And I held up my phone. I said, they've taken over our lives. But you know what? There are 100 million more people in the United States today than there were in 1983. And our unemployment rate is 4%. So somewhere in there was a vast technological change, a tremor, if you will, that did not just eliminate people, it eliminated jobs that could be more effectively done by other means and other tools, freeing us up to much more important brain work. And that's what I see AI being on the threshold of for our industry and our world.
This is something we said, and you'll remember we said it at Fallon Analytics. Like we're not asking you to turn your brain off, we're asking you to turn it up. Right? Like
Correct.
so and
Yep.
I like what you said. People didn't go away, jobs might have gone away, but the people who were successful had this mindset of, okay, well, what do I get to do now?
Right. Right.
Right.
How do I
So
bring value to the organization?
yeah. And what new things can I learn? So, it's really good to recognize that AI is a continuum of both technology and of data science. Not only did you help Hemic embrace predictive analytics, but you spoke about it often at industry conferences, including the Ballon Summit, where you would come and help us out pretty much every other year. What's the most important thing in your perspective that leaders should communicate when embedding analytics into human decision making?
Well, I think it's important to start with the customer and the business in terms of what is it you're trying to improve? What problem are you trying to solve? And how do you make the business better? I think one of the things I pointed out along the way at one of those conferences was back when fintech and insurtech were the rage, and insurtech is still out there, certainly. But many of these thousands of new ideas, software and other technologies, frankly, were solutions in search of problems. And they didn't start with what's the usefulness of this going to be and what's the efficacy of this going to be for the organization. It was just, gee, this is cool, shiny new stuff that we can use. But if it doesn't have relevance, then it's not going to be helpful. So I think the approach really needs to be what does the organization need? And then how do we find solutions that are going to help us be more efficient and effective to get those things done? So it's still going to be the human brain that has to think about and ask the questions of the customers and the employees actually doing the work to serve those customers, how we make the business better.
And when we think about AI, how much of that rings true for AI? And is there anything that you see as different or unique about AI in all of this?
I think what's different and unique, first of all, is the uh, we've been we've been preparing for AI for many years without calling it AI. Unfortunately, that preparation has been in the area of science fiction movies and whether it's Avatar or whatever, to where is this going to be a world that goes off the rails
Mhm.
before we even called it AI. So as soon as AI comes along, then through our own closure, we conclude that, okay, it's here. It's here. The end of the world is nigh. Because these computer brains are going to be smarter than us, and they're going to realize that all the problems in the world are caused by man, so we'll just eliminate man. I think that's the that
Yeah.
that's the ultimate fear, correct? So we kind of started, I think, at a disadvantage because we weren't able to provide reference for the users and the customers of AI for them to see the value that is going to be inherent in that, and the fact that we still have ample opportunity and time to control and shape and hone those processes to do good.
And isn't it interesting that that's the case, even though AI has been around for decades, but these technologies kind of sit in the background for a long time. Internet
Hmm.
similar, right? It was more a defense thing, was around for many, many decades before, it comes out. I mean, how do you think about how do we how do we not get so surprised by things that are not new, but kind of find their momentum after having been around many decades? It's a big conundrum. I don't really know the answer.
Yeah, I think every change seems new, Kirsten,
Yeah.
and seems scary.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of look at that as it's more about people's willingness to change. That sounds scary.
Mhm.
Um, it's more about their willingness to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And learn and grow sounds much more productive and makes us feel better about who we are and what we can accomplish and uh, have satisfaction with our roles in the organization and in the world. And change has this sound to it that is, my God, I have to stop what I've been doing and now do something totally different. But no, it's let's learn something new, and you're never too old or set in your ways, hopefully, to do that. And I think that's the approach that I hope leaders are trying to instill in their staffs. Don't be afraid of this. Get out in front of it and uh, pull AI with you. Don't let AI drag you forward.
Yeah. Yeah, be part of defining it, be whatever you're worried about with AI, we'll get in there and, create the guardrails that you think are needed
Yeah.
or whatnot. So a lot of this comes down to culture and values and how you can be really thoughtful about innovation. So when you think about it, how do you evaluate whether a new tool is going to align with your culture and your values?
Well, if I can, I'm going to step back a little bit from that one because I think the organization I'm in now has always had a great advantage. And that advantage is we're not even 30 years old. So if you think about our formation in 96 or 97, we wrote the first policy, we entered the 21st century paperless and data driven. And it's a real leg up on our competitors who were lugging legacy systems into the 21st century. So with that as our baseline, and I give all the credit to our founder at the time who was insistent that we're going to get paper out of this process. Every opportunity and every new tool we look at has to be viewed through that lens of how is it something that's going to make our employees more efficient and effective without bogging them down. To the contrary, it's going to speed them up. And when I look at AI, and you haven't actually asked me this question yet, but and maybe you won't, so I'll just answer my own question here. When you look at the traditional roles, underwriter, claims adjuster, in my business, the sheer volume of documents that are in files, underwriting files in the old day, paper into file drawers and claim files, unbelievable. That's all digitized now. That's all in ImageWrite or some other system that we can access online. But there's still a lot of reading to do for those people. They're just not reading a piece of paper and holding it. It's screen time for them. Well, AI is going to have the capability to read those documents for us in an instant and also formulate what are the four or five most important points or priorities that come out of what I just read, but didn't have to read that 40-page medical report. Um, that's going to be the advantage. And then what that's going to do to free up a claims adjuster to deal with the injured worker, or conversations with the physician or the underwriter to deal with the agent or the potential buyer of the product and presenting to them and so forth. I just see this as really streamlining the worst parts of those jobs and making the best parts more enriching.
So, and claims is such a great area, and I know you're really focused on claims. So let's talk about that a little bit more. At the end of the day, if I'm buying an insurance policy, I'm buying it so that you can help me when I have a claim. So claims handling is really the promise that insurance offers, right, to its customers.
Mhm.
And so from your perspective, why is claims the first place that you're kind of focused on the application of AI, and how is it helping your teams today, other than just helping them get through a document faster?
Yeah. Well, I think you touched on it in that from that standpoint. In fact, I think I used this phraseology just yesterday. Claim service is what we sell.
Yeah.
If you think about a person paying a premium for their insurance, if they never have a claim, there's nothing for us to to give back to them, to promise to them. So we know that claims and the way we handle them are really what we do the most. Further, that loss element is the largest number on our income statement. And to that extent, our ability to close claims sooner, more effectively, have better outcomes for the injured worker, is going to not only improve their lives and get them back to work, it improves our result as well. So starting there, and I haven't even talked about reading medical reports and so forth. It is about that process, that claims process, really lends itself to streamlining because of the magnitude of the collective result of all those claims and the fact that that's the service that our customers most depend on us for.
Yeah. So, I mean, it back to what I was saying before in my flowery intro, which I meant all of it, um, is it does allow the innovation to be more customer centric. And this is one of the promises I think of AI is to take off some of the tasks that consume so much time, but aren't as public facing or customer facing, that only we can do, that a machine is not going to replace.
Well, and I think you just touched on something that's um, extremely insightful. Uh, the fact that the AI is not going to homogenize everything. You think about computers, just one size fits all, and whether it's a if you're getting customer service, and I'm not going to knock an industry here, through your airline, and you can't talk to a real person, you've got to ask the questions they prepared answers for, and it's like everything is the same. And I think I don't see that being the case with AI. I think AI is going to be intelligent enough to be able to tailor what are the top priorities for this injured worker versus the top priorities for that injured worker based on the facts of that case. And I think that's totally different than a rubric inside a computer that's just going to make a calculation and uh, the answer is the answer for everybody.
Yeah. So if we really think about how to put guardrails on AI and where's the human in the equation, we just have to be extremely prescriptive with our how we train our AI so that it's working together, right? Not either or. It's a both and.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And it's not to say that we don't have fears about it. In our industry, it's really revolves around data security, right? So we're gonna enable artificial intelligence to get inside our systems where we're holding very valuable personal medical
Mhm.
data and so forth that uh, our customers have entrusted us with. And we're not going to just go willy-nilly into that because once we lose that trust, very, very difficult to gain that back. So our foray into AI has to be very measured, and it has to take all of those potential downsides into consideration before we leap, if you will. So it has to be uh, really has to be a calculated risk. It can't just be, wow, this is the future. We have to go there. The sooner the better. We'll be better than our customers. Um, you don't want to be on the bleeding edge of
Yeah.
this change.
Yeah. So I know you've said this before, so you know, really thinking about that privacy and cybersecurity really have to come first in the AI conversation, probably everywhere, but particularly in heavily regulated industries like insurance. So when you think about it in the insurance industry, what do you think are the most important things when we're talking about privacy and cybersecurity that need to be at the forefront?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's understanding how rapidly that world's changing
Mhm.
in terms of the amount of information that we hold, increasing daily and used in many different ways. Um, on top of that, though, it's uh, there's just a lot of concern over expense in the insurance world. We talk about our loss ratio being the biggest number on our income statement. Well, our expense ratio is next. And what we spend on technology today compared to what we spent even 5 years ago or 10 years ago is significant. And my perspective on this, and I tell our board this regularly, is these are not expenses, they're investments. Because if we're not keeping current, first of all, with how things are done, but further in how we're protecting what we do and the information of our customers, that's only going to end abruptly and badly. And that our ability to recognize that to be successful year after year and keep a operating performance that is good has to be in the face of additional spends, additional investments in that area. So I think that's the starting point for me is making sure that security is protecting what we have, but at the same time challenging my technology people that you can't protect us from ourselves. It can't be so locked down that we can't do our jobs. We still have to be able to serve customers and deal with agents, and there's going to have to be some um, entry points to our organization that are okay. We can't lock bolt all the doors. So you have to kind of strategize in at what respect do they come in, how do they get their keys to their area only, and AI I think is going to be um, uber critical in that area for us to be certain we're protecting what we need to protect without squelching the capability of that intelligence, um, because that I think would be a waste of opportunity.
This is the push and pull that happens in almost every company across every industry is what the business wants access to and what, IT and cybersecurity are trying to protect, against a breach or, anything like that. And um, if you're advising people who are, you know, really great individual contributors, maybe they're middle managers today. What are you looking for in terms of your team to help figure out how to chart that path forward? Because I understand the concerns of IT and your CISO and all of that. Those are legitimate concerns, but the business has to operate. The customers have to be served. The data, they call it the democratization of data. That's a big term out there.
Hmm.
People need access to the data in order to actually do their jobs really well and to meet the goals of the organization. And the board wants you to meet your goals. And it's a tug between the different areas. So when you look at individuals who are trying to figure that out, what are you looking for in terms of their mindset in enabling those tools and yet protecting the company?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there's been a shift in the business world in the last decade or so, and I'll explain what I mean by that. If I go back 10 or 20 years, and I probably talked about this at one of my Valen presentations, Kirsten, is I've always been someone who's wanted to create a what I would call a bilingual organization. And by bilingual, I meant people who understand the language of the business, but also understand the language of technology. And it's by bringing those two together that you really get progress in the organization. So making sure that your technical IT people at least understand the heck it is you do for a customer. What is a policy? How does it get priced? What's a claim due? They can't just sit over in an IT silo and do their jobs. But by the same respect, your departmental folks can't just be focused on what they do without having some sense of what these tools are and can do for them. So back in those old days, I would say it was better in my mind to find the business person who had a passion for technology that was going to help lead you forward, better than that IT expert learning enough about the business to be able to push it forward. It was just too much of a learning curve. I think that arc has changed. I think technology is much more ubiquitous to people coming out of college, their comfort level, keyboards, devices, social media, all of that. They have that language already. So for us, it's how do they take that experience and knowledge and learn our business to be able to figure out now how can I apply these learnings that I've had since kindergarten. How can I help this organization that is in the business of doing these things? How do I apply that to make that go forward? So when you ask what I'm looking for people who are able to have that sort of an outlook. They're inquisitive. I'm not looking for skills necessarily coming out of college or any new employee, 20s, 30s even. It's what's the culture they're bringing to this? What's their work ethic, their level of inquisitiveness, their wanting to understand, their aspirations for growth for themselves and their family and and the organization. And then in there, you're going to find the people who can learn underwriting, how to price, how to handle a claim. Uh, but it's that cultural perspective on what we do being important for the end customer, that employer and their workers. Uh, that's what I think is going to move us forward. And AI then just becomes the tool that they're comfortable with learning because they've been learning technology tools their whole lives. But it's on the front end of how does that get applied in the way that's going to best promote the organization and its result and their career, if you will.
And isn't it such a kind of a cool change in organizational culture where what you really described was multi-generational learning from each other? Let us help you with the business and the expertise that we may have in this business, whether we're underwriting policies, serving claims, whatever we're doing within an insurance organization. And hey, by the way, please teach us who,
Yep.
they're digital natives, we're digital immigrants because we did not grow up with this. And so it's a language, to your point, if it's bilingual, we had to learn it as a second language. And so there's just all these great learnings that can go all the different ways. And so if you're up and coming in your organization, it's very cool to know that your leaders actually want you to teach them, and it's not just a one-way conversation anymore.
Right, right. And I also think it's um, being confident that those people are out there. I mean, I read too much today about Generation Z and, snowflakes and, don't want to work or they're stuck in their basements from COVID or whatever. And I just don't buy that, Kirsten. I know there's that element out there, and I had those people when I was in school who didn't have aspirations and so forth. It's not that different today. And I have to tell you, I'm gonna share with you. We had some interns. We had an intern class this year in our organization, and these people were all, 20-ish in college, and but for the summer they came and took on actual jobs and did things, projects, and real work. It wasn't just, walking around the office, sitting next to somebody and learning what they do. And I found to a person, every one of them to be extremely bright, ambitious, um, inquisitive. They had aspirations, and frankly, they restored my faith in the future. This is
Amazing.
the world's going to be great, despite what we see on the news or read from a vocal minority in social media or whatever. I think AI and the people are going to work together to really, really move our society forward.
It's a very refreshing perspective. And if I was, in my 20s, so I'm a Gen Xer, and I remember Time magazine, and it had this big X on the cover, and it was like, who are these people? And so, we were considered this X factor, and no one knew what to do with us. Um, so I can relate, to that kind of labeling, and you just have to kind of wash that away and say there are great people at any sort of stage.
Yep,
So that's all
yep.
the good side. So aside from cybersecurity, data privacy, what concerns do you have with AI and how either it can be applied incorrectly without the appropriate ethical guidelines, or people not maybe having to learn as much as they used to be grounded? What concerns do you have when you think about just AI broadly?
Well, I think my concern, and again, this is controllable in an organization, I think, in terms of who your people are and what your expectations are of them. But I think about some of the uses of AI today, whether it's a student who's supposed to write a paper and it goes to AI and they don't even have to do anything and it gets done for them and they turn that in as if it's their product. And on the leading edge of this, the early stages of this, we can get away with that. But at some point, there still needs to be our impact, our stamp on what AI is doing in order to promote our organization and its success. So I think the concern I have at this point is really instilling in staff your organizational culture's obligation, your responsibility to make sure that those core values and the mission of your organization are obvious in the AI that you're using. That won't be easy, but if we take that as our mantle to wear to work going forward with that, then I think that's how we humanize the AI for good. Um, and without that, it's going to be a tool that we use and be able to take credit for work that didn't really stretch our brains at all. So I look at it from the other side that AI is just going to stretch our brains further and wider than they are today, and we know the capability of our brains is hardly scratched in a human life, right? So this is just going to be, wow, how much more are we going to be able to do because we have this other tool and assistant helping us?
This really harkens back to the early days of data science and predictive analytics, where there were similar concerns. Like, are you telling me just to look at a predictive score and throw my, experience out and I just follow what this says and no one was ever really saying that. I mean, but it gets a little scary when you say, "Oh, we're going to automate, decisions in the insurance world for maybe premiums that are of a smaller size where it's easier to process it faster or claims that um, can be settled much faster because they really don't need a lot of involvement, save the people strength for where the expertise is really needed." But a big part, I know that's important to you and has always been important to Hemic in this regard, are partnerships in terms of how you explore new technologies and get analytics. And Hemic was an early adopter of predictive modeling in insurance. And so glad that it was Valen that was able to work with Hemic for so long. What do you think made that partnership with Valen work so well?
Well, I think it was that we were both coming into creating something.
Yeah.
And while Valen had a tool and a product, at that time they didn't have enough data
Mhm.
to be able to make sense of the calculations and the tiers and so forth of that predictive analytics. So it was our ability to provide data and sort it and segment it in a way that predictive analytics could use information and adding up all of these um, pieces of information that went into the calculation come out with a product. I was smiling as you were, or at least to myself. Maybe I wasn't smiling, but I was smiling as you were talking about that. People were worried about, well, does this just mean the machine's going to do it? Well, I think in the early days, without saying so, the answer was, yeah, it is. And there's a good reason for that. If you're looking at small policies, and if you think about schedule rating and some things, I won't get into details of an human underwriter making a decision that this $4,000 policy deserves $5,000 more credit, and this policy deserves 3% less credit over the course of that, when only one out of 20 of those policies is ever going to have a claim.
Mhm.
How do you know which one is going to be the one that has the claim? And that's the one that you're going to price. So it really was introducing portfolio underwriting, is the way I look at it. And having that price that on the whole was proper. Then let the chips fall where they may, and the insurance charge you're collecting in the portfolio is going to cover that one larger claim that happens, or the two or three. And so that was kind of the basis. But then as you move forward and you move predictive analytics up the ladder of size and complexity, then there needs to be a little more individual tailoring of
Mhm.
how those factors work. And then the underwriter is going to be able to say, okay, here's the score I'm starting with, but now my brain is required because I can look at the characteristics of this insured and know that based on their workplace or experience or whatever, they're deserving of something more or less. So I think it was that evolution of predictive analytics that we had to do together
Yeah.
was really what made it work.
Yeah. So bringing the statisticians together with the domain expertise of the business of insurance and really partnering and being open to partnering together
Hmm.
to do something that was truly new for the industry at that time.
And
So,
I think not to interrupt you,
yeah,
Kristen,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
think one other key to that is it wasn't just the statisticians and the finance people and so forth. The underwriter, the user of that application, had to be at the table, and for two reasons. One is that they were going to be able to tell the statisticians things that they would go, oh, really? I didn't realize that. I didn't understand that about what it is underwriters do. But at the same time, the underwriter having ownership and buy into, this is a tool that I'm going to use and it's going to help me. It's not something being given to me, thrust upon me later that then I have to adapt to.
So the power of relationship was important, the power of trust, because you talked a lot about, data privacy, and you had to have enough trust in Valen to give us, that kind of access to very granular, level data, which then, as you know, and some people listening know, Valen then grew that relationship across many carriers, built a data consortium, and then everyone benefited from a bigger data set than any one company could have, on their own. So as we take a look at some of these elements, how do you think these lessons are going to carry forward in how you think about AI now?
Well, I think we have to go about creating useful AI in the same way. We've got to involve the people who are going to use it, coming at it from the perspective of how does it best serve the customer and the organization's success. But I think at the same time, there's more of a carefulness, a kind of treading lightly on, well, what if there are multiple AI tools out there across my company and my competitors? Where are the danger points of that interaction? And I think it's solvable in the same way that our data rate making uh, clearinghouse of someone like NCCI,
Mhm.
we're all sharing our unit statistical data to create state-based base rates without it being collusion or our secrets being given away.
Yeah,
That's not happening. So I think, but it has to be intentional. It has to happen. It has to be done on the front end as you're going about it. You have to be aware that those are the dangers, and those security walls are going to have to be there. That gets back to the cybersecurity necessity and everything else.
yeah. So going a little deeper on culture, um, since this is all about the human side of AI and how data analytics and people really come together. Let's talk about culture from two perspectives. One where it starts at the top, and then the second will be how it comes to life within the team ranks. But first, because there are a lot of companies in a lot of industries really, really struggling with how to implement, roll out, explain the strategy, the why of AI. It's really difficult for a lot of companies and the change management and how fast you have to be adapting because AI is it's just moving so much faster, right, than anything we've really seen before. So what advice would you give to another CEO who wants to adopt AI but isn't really sure, where to begin or how to make it successful within their company?
Well, I think, you talked about change management. I think that even has become a word that scares people
Mhm.
because, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to change. So I think you have to approach it from more of the evolution perspective of how can we take what you do today and make it more efficient and effective for the output you're trying to get for the organization and the customer. And I think that starts way before you're even talking about a specific tool that might be something that can help you. It's really them understanding that together the employees of my organization are going to figure out how to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of what we do every day. And if you're not engaging in those conversations, and it doesn't have to be we're going to lock ourselves in a room and there's going to be a whiteboard and flip charts and post-it notes and all that stuff, and we're going to come out with some answer. It's just conversations. It's spending 30 or 60 minutes with a group of employees and asking them about what they do and how it can be more effective for them and what excites them about what they do and what do they see as the benefit of what they do, who benefits from what they do, whether it's internally or whether it's the external customer, the most important customer, by the way. Uh, but if it's not conversations, if it's just we need to make this change, we're gonna put this group together a committee to figure out how we're going to use this AI product and go forward. I think then you're really pulling people uh, with fear instead of arming them and walking with them up that hill. So I think that's what organizations need to do. And I think if you're true to your core values, whatever those are,
Mhm.
integrity, professionalism, excellence, connection, I can name ours. Uh, but as long as you start there, then whatever AI does still has to uphold those.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, we can't do it because it's not that we have to go to AI at the expense of who we are, our values, and our mission. It has to be, we're probably going to need to utilize AI going forward. How do we integrate that to be the AI that's consistent and aligned with who we are?
You talked about, the benefit of Hemic being more of a modern system and a data-driven company from its founding. And so you had that benefit. You also have experience in more legacy, in a legacy industry, legacy companies. So if I have to move my company and I don't have the benefit of a data-driven, culture, and I've acquired all these companies, we don't just have one legacy system, we have a whole bunch and they don't talk to each other and nobody's trusting this data. And, these things are real in a lot of companies. What's your advice on how to foster that culture that's more open to innovation without pushing people too fast and also not letting them go too slow?
Yeah, I think it's kind of starting with the result you're looking for
Mhm.
first. So if I'm suddenly in charge of leading some conglomerate of a bunch of acquired organizations with whole different systems, and I'm really thankful I'm not, Kirsten. Uh, I think it has to be okay. What again is what's the purpose and the mission of the organization as respects our customers? And then you've got to roll that back to how do the systems we have today support that? And those that don't, how do we modify them to do so, or combine them with ones that do, or eliminate entirely and find something that aligns. But if you don't start with the why, I don't know how you can take all of these disparate systems and just say, well, we're gonna boil four of them down to one, and this is going to be it. Well, how do you know that's the one that's going to really reflect your values and culture and value proposition for your customers? Uh, Start there. So if I was somebody hired me away tomorrow, and they can't, somebody hired me away tomorrow to go do that, that's where I'd have to start because I'd be going in saying, I really don't understand what it is you do or how you do it. So let me understand that first, and then let's then look at how do the systems we have or the AI opportunities we're evaluating, how are they going to support that and align with that and make sure we get what we need going forward.
And it's really important on how you're going to, measure it, at the beginning. Everyone kind of knows like this is how we're going to evaluate progress. Where did we try something and it didn't work? Don't just celebrate your wins, celebrate the fail fast. Like these are cultural things that are really important. And start with something. Don't boil the ocean. Start somewhere that matters but isn't gonna risk the whole business but can gain some support, right? And champions over time. So the second part of culture then is how it permeates and is reinforced with people at all levels of the organization. And I love what you talked about in terms of the interns earlier. But where have you seen employees, really step up and show leadership skills and help their colleagues overcome being unsure or cautious or I'm going to lose my job about this next wave of tech?
Well, I think the most recent example that I have is an upgrade that we did in our primary systems here. And it was a lot of work and a lot of a team environment and a lot of subject matter experts and I really entrusted them, although I was getting feedback and updates continually, uh, to they're going to do this in the way that's going to benefit the organization. And we had this all planned out and communications planned, and when we were going to flip the switch over this weekend and shut down systems on Friday and go forward. Um, and I remember having a call on a Sunday night with this committee, and they weren't ready. It wasn't, there was a little bit of fear that, well, we're not absolutely certain. We think it's going to be fine, but we're not absolutely certain. And I think they went into that call with some trepidation that maybe Marty is going to say, wait a minute, we told our agents, we told our board, this thing's going live at 7 a.m. tomorrow. It has to go live at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I'm thinking about the Space Shuttle Challenger. That flight had to go off and it exploded. You know, and I was coming at it from the other tack. And I said, okay, so what are we, if we don't go live tomorrow, what are we going to do? And they're like, well, if we had one more day to test this and this and this, we can go the next day. I said, so what does that mean to the business tomorrow? Oh, well, the backup system will still provide what we need to do. We can't get all the data in where it needs to go. What will just be 24 hours behind on that, but we will catch up when we go. And I said, then fine, that's what we'll do. We're gonna hold the presses. We're not gonna do it, and we're gonna go forward. And it was one of those moments where I was so proud of the team for taking the leadership role in that, and they didn't even need me. And they thought they needed me to tell them, come hell or high water, we're going live tomorrow. But they didn't. And I think when I said, then we're not going because you know better than I do, and it'll go off on Tuesday, and it went off on Tuesday famously. I think what that does to get inside people's heads about their value to an organization, their being able to have a say so in technological change, um, is invaluable. It's invaluable. Um, it's hard on the CEO sometimes to let go. It's like being a parent, or do I really take the training wheels off here and let this happen? Uh, but I think as it turned out, I think it was a great growth opportunity for business and technology here in what we are going to face ahead of us.
And it had to have really inspired that team that they had this really strong voice in things going forward past that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there are certain things that in an organization are top down. There are some things that are bottoms up, but there's a lot more things that are a mix of all of it. So if you're in a, let's say I'm an aspiring leader and I'm working within an organization, what do you think I would need to have in terms of, understanding AI, and all the, innovation that is coming at us so fast? What are the skills that aspiring leaders need to really be thinking about and learning in their role today that can propel them where they want to go tomorrow?
Well, my answer will probably shock some people, but I think it's humility is a good place to start. I cannot possibly know everything I need to know in every aspect of our business or of the technology capabilities that are available to us. All I can do is try to get enough people who are as smart or smarter than I am together to where the 1 + 1 is worth more than two at the end of the day. So that's my recommendation is if any leader goes into this journey with AI, uh, believing they're the smartest person in the room, I think that's going to hold the organization back. And that's not to say leaders don't need to be smart and that I'm not capable of some things, but I think you have to be realistic about all that we need to accomplish, not having to go all the decisions made by one person. That not only slows you down, but it also risks, well, maybe they don't really have the right answer. and you don't want their hubris to get in the way of the best answer going forward. So, my advice is get over yourself, find talented people, and be the one asking all the right questions, not believing you have all the right answers.
So in the past, I love that answer. People have thought job security means I have information no one else has and I'm a gatekeeper. Well, that just doesn't even work in the age of AI. It really doesn't work. And it's going to hurt you versus help you and help your
Yep,
company,
yep,
right? Like
exactly.
that's actually job insecurity in my opinion. But right, we've grown up in companies where that's where people thought that their job security was.
Hmm.
And the world just has moved so far past that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I love that answer. This has been such a great conversation. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that we talk about?
Uh, I no, I've enjoyed this immensely, and I'm happy to follow up with anything you might need or want. And I hope this has been helpful for those that had to endure me for 45 minutes or whatever this was. And I wish you the best in everything going forward, Kirsten.
Oh, thank you so much, Marty, and thank you for your time. And to Marty's point, this is meant to be a dialogue between today's leaders and tomorrow's. Share your comments, whatever this brought up for you, perspectives that you want to share and add to the community. That's how we all get better, is by sort of sharing this feedback and input and opinions and reactions to the different conversations on Lead the Machine. So, Marty, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. And that'll wrap this episode of Lead the Machine. Thanks so much.
Thank you.